Hello and welcome to the 19th installment of my grading of all of the base game cards. If you want insight into the grading system, check out the description or click on the link in the top right hand corner to get to the first video, where I explain it all. But let's get started. Industrial Center is an interesting card. When played, it's often not even used for its intended purpose, which is using the action to increase steel prod. Rather, the tile placement is used to get enough plants for a greenery, block a great spot next to an opponent's city, or flip landlord. It's also a really cheap building tag, especially since you can also claim ocean rebates with it, so it's super valuable in the race for builder. But all these side use cases are great and all, but can you actually use this card for its intended effect as well? Well, certainly, but only once or max twice in the super early game, and you should also get some value out of the tile placement to make this card truly worth playing. But if you use the card action early on, the action itself recoups its costs in 4 gens. So all in all, Industrial Center is a flexible card that can be used in the early game for economic development, and in the mid to late game as a super cheap tile for rebates, conversions, milestones and awards. I think it's a C tier card. Industrial Microbes is not a great card. But why? If we compare it to Mine and Power Plant, we see that it costs 15 MC to buy and play instead of 14, so 1 MC more, with the only difference being the tax. So that's not a great start. But the bigger problem is that it's too expensive as a development card in the early game if you don't have an immediate use for the power, and that, because of the steel prod, it's too expensive to play in the late game to get a power-hungry card like Open City down. So it's only viable in the early game when the steel prod is still a factor that you want to pay for, and when you need power to get something like GHG factories down as well. But even in that case, it's not super good, since it's more expensive than it should be. The microbe tech can be useful, for example to unlock advanced ecosystems or on Elysium in the race for ecologist, but it's only a small upside. I'm torn between D and F tier on this one, and I think it might be F, but certainly one of the better F tier cards. In stark contrast, let's talk about one of the most influential cards in the entire game: Insects. This card always has to be in the back of your head when looking at plant tags in the draft. It's an essential piece in the green combo, and this, as well as NRA, make every early to mid game plant tag so much better. You can often get 4 or 5 plant prod out of insects in the mid game, and if you draw the slate, it might even be 8 or more, which will generate a whole lot of points per gen on its own. Of course, this card would be better without the oxygen requirement, but it's not such a big deal, since it's pretty hard to get enough plant tags down early on anyways, so waiting until 6% isn't too bad. Insects is crazy good, and you should almost never pass this in the draft. It's certainly S tier. And straight back to a mediocre card: Insulation. This card has one primary purpose: winning banker. For everything else, it's nearly useless. You might say, what if the temperature track maxed out super fast and I'm left with a lot of useless heat prod? Well, A, you should ask yourself why you overinvested into heat that much, and B, you should probably fund Thermalist. And lastly, for all beginners watching this video, heat is much more valuable than MC, so you should never use this in the early to mid game. Insulation is D tier in my opinion. It should be F tier, but it can swing banker on its own, and therefore there are many scenarios where you have to cut this in the draft. Interstellar Colony Ship looks like an incredibly simple card. You pay 24 plus 3 MC and it grants 4 points and nothing else. But there's more to it. Since it only grants points and nothing else, you only really want to play it in the last gen. But would you rather play this or fund an award for 20? If there's one that you will win 100%, then of course you will rather fund the award. It's cheaper, and in 2P it's even more points. But sometimes all awards are funded or none of them are in your favor. Then ICS still doesn't have an amazing conversion rate. But what's more important to consider are the million ways to improve this card. It's a space event, it has an earth tag, it grants points, and it costs more than 20. If you have one of these discounts on screen right now, or you can stack some of them, then this card can become super worth it. And sometimes it's even enough that you can pay for this with titanium. So ICS is a situational card. I don't just pick this up to plainly play it. It needs discounts or leftover titanium to be worth it. But that happens often enough to either you or your opponent, so it's often quite high priority in the draft. B tier, in my opinion. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments whether you agree with my ratings, or if not, how you would have rated them differently. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And lastly, please check out my Twitch and my Twitter. See you in the next video.